Hi, everybody. My name is Hannah, and I am from the Wyoming branch. And once a month, every month on Monday, I'm going to be sharing some graphic novel titles with you. So for every month, we're going to do a different theme. And basically, the only thing that I don't really do is I tend to not do superhero graphic novels that often, just because when you think graphic novel, you tend to think Marvel and DC, which they're great, but there's also a lot of other options for you that are really, really cool. And then one other thing to note before we get started is for these book talks, I bring up teen and adult graphic novels. I will give a little bit of a warning before I go into the adult titles, but I know on some of the printed calendars, it's just described for teens. And of course, teens are welcome to read the adult ones as well. They're all very, very good. But I wanted to let you know before we get started. Feel free to leave a comment while I'm going through some of these with you. And if you miss a title, no big deal. I will, at the end of this, leave a nice comment on the bottom listing all of the titles and authors that I will share with you today. So get comfortable and let's get to it. So I'm going to start with the teen titles. These are all nonfiction, and there's a nice little mix. I'm going to start with biographies. I have a good amount of biographies for teen titles today, but they are quite good, and the art styles really range wildly too. So first one I want to get started with is Hey Kiddo. So this is actually the biography of our main author here, and he's actually a fairly well-known illustrator of children's picture books, and he's also the illustrator and author for the Lunch Lady series, which is a really cute junior graphic novel series. So Hey Kiddo, this does talk about drug addiction, so heads up with that. Just because his mother was actually a drug addict, so he lived with his grandparents through most of his life. But this is also a really good redemption story because he loves to draw, and his guardians notice that, help him along the way, and you really get to see him blossom into the cool human that he is today. The other nice thing is it's really pretty pencil work. So if you just want an attractive biography where even though there are some definite hard parts in here for sure, it all kind of works out in the end. And he also does interviews about this book and about his life that you can find on YouTube. And I believe he even did a TED Talk. So if you want to learn more about this really cool guy, check this out. Watch him on YouTube. All kinds of good stuff. This next one here, this is another author and illustrator, and this is the biography of Noelle Stevenson, The Fire Never Goes Out Memoir in Pictures. This is a really pretty one because her work is just beautiful. She wrote Nimona, which is one of her more famous ones. She does a lot of web comics too. This just talks about her life growing up. There's even some family pictures in here too, showing about how her love for illustrating and graphic novels and just web work and graphic design and all that good stuff came to be. So if you are getting really into illustration and want to get more into graphic novels, or you just really want to learn more about one of your favorite authors, this is a really good one to pick up. And you get some sneak peeks into her artwork that she didn't ever publish until in this book. So it's a really cool one. This next one, I'd say, is a mix of a memoir and a coming out story. So Honor Girl is the story of Maggie Thrash. And she talks about how one year in summer camp, she met another girl. They start to have an attraction for each other, but because of their age and meeting at summer camp, it kind of ends in disaster. But it talks about like all the emotions that go with it, of learning, of like first loves and all that kind of good stuff. So what I really like about this is another cool pencil work graphic novel. As you can see, I kind of have a bias. I like pencil work a lot. But if you just want a really nice biography, there is a coming out story in it too. And of course, it's really fun because it's in summer camp. Then Honor Girl is a really cool one for you. And then that's the end of the teen biographies. This one, it's both a biography and I'd say historic. It's kind of in those things. It's technically a biography because it is George Takei's life story of when he was a child in a Japanese internment camp, but it's also history because it discusses a firsthand account of what it was like to be in a Japanese internment camp. This is called They Called Us Enemy. So this one's been around for a few years now, but it's still winning a bunch of awards. It's beautifully done. George Takei and his team did a beautiful job with this. And this shows his life story of being a young child and being sent to the Japanese internment camps in World War II. So this is just, it's a really good story. It's a really good rise from the ashes kind of story, as it brings up how he overcame his rather tough upbringing into becoming a celebrity that we all know and love. And at the same time, it's really cool because it shows a young child's perspective in an internment camp, which you don't really get that many of those. And it shows like the very innocent perspective, but also like how young eyes see this dark stuff. So if you want to read a beautifully illustrated graphic novel, want to learn a little bit more about George Takei and Japanese internment camps, then this is a really good one for you. Like, for example, it's not always sad stuff in here. Like here's one right here where his mom got all excited because she got a new sewing machine. So there's some good stuff in here too. But definitely check it out. It's really cool. It's definitely one of my favorite graphic novels for sure. This next one, this one's pretty heavy, so just a heads up there. This one is called We'll Soon Be Home Again. So this is going to be a history one, and this is about Holocaust survivors. These are all different Holocaust survivors telling their survival stories and then drawn in this graphic novel. So the way these work is they like show a picture of the person, the story they're about to tell. They illustrate how they got into the camps, what happened in the camps, and how they survived it. So this is a really nice graphic novel if you just want some firsthand accounts on Holocaust survival. Just keeping it handy, and also the artwork is very well done. It's a very attractive graphic novel. There are some heavy themes, but that is to be expected with the subject matter. But if you just want a good example of a World War II history graphic novel, this is one I recommend. And then the last one for teens, it is an election year this year. So what better time is it than to learn about voting history? Isn't that thing sweet? This is called Drawing the Vote. Beautifully done. This is an entire illustrated guide on the history of voting in America, how it works, and all kinds of other cool stuff. This is just a really neat, it's almost a bit of a guide at the same time. And what's nice is it goes from the start of voting in America, so the colonial times, all the way to more modern times, which is cool. Like, ta-da! Look at that. It goes 2010 to present, which I really like that. So if you just want to learn more about the history of voting, and it's always been kind of tricky to find history of voting, this is all in one handy dandy book for you. And it's just drawn in a very fun, whimsical way as well. So let you take a little look here. All right. So those are all of the teen picks that I have for you today. These next few are adult graphic novels. These are still, if a teen wants to read them, they are more than welcome to. They're still lovely books. But with adult graphic novels, the content can tend to be a little bit more mature, and there can be some more gore and sexual themes. So if it's not your jam, I will give you a moment to go elsewhere. All right, cool. All right, so first one, this is a more humorous one. This is called Kid Gloves. This is actually a 2-for-1 kind of book. This is the biography a little bit of Lucy, but this is Lucy's story of her pregnancy. So this goes through all 9 months of her pregnancy, what it felt like, all the joys and not so joys that you get when you're pregnant. But it also tells the story of pregnancy history and reproductive health history at the same time. So it's fun if you have always wanted to know, like, why we do certain things, how certain parts of the body work. This is a really cool one for you. But if you also just want a good biography on what it's like to be pregnant, this is a really good one for you too. Or you just want someone to relate to for a little bit if you yourself are going through pregnancy. This is a one I highly recommend for you. And the art style is just really pretty. I really like the art style in this one. And if you like her work, she's also done other stuff too. Like, whoop, I'll just show you the back here. Like Relish. And her newest one is something new where it talks about marriage. So if you like her work, she has a lot more stuff out there. This next one, I'd say, is the most unique graphic novel that I'm showing today, because it uses photography and graphic novel and illustration work. This is called The Photographer. So this one's a little bit older, but it's definitely still worth pointing out. This is the story of some cameramen and reporters that followed the Doctors Without Borders in Afghanistan during the Afghan War in the 1980s. So this just showcases some of the photography that was done, some of the grisliness that occurred when you're following a crew when they're in some pretty hostile situations. As you can see, there's photos and there's illustration work done. So if you like a good combo of all these things, then this is a really good one for sure. It can be a little heavy, but knowing the subject matter, I understand it. And it is what I like to call a big, big book. As you can see, it's bigger than my head. So if you want a graphic novel that's bigger than your head and talks about Afghan war tensions and also has some really cool photography work, The Photographer is a really cool one for you. And to kind of go with that, this one's a bit more recent. This is the Freedom Hospital. So this is the story of a underground hospital that was run in Syria around 2014 or so during Assad's regime. So this was done by volunteers and Doctors Without Borders, and it talks about running a underground secret hospital for allies and to help civilians seek medical care in the middle of a battlefield. And this is a very pretty one. It has really pretty black and white work. Let's see another good example here. It talks about the years and going through everything. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, Freedom Hospital, learning more about hospitals that were run in the middle of wartime, then this is a really good one for you. This next one, I'm going to go for something a little spacey. This one's really cool. This is Apollo. So this is the story of astronauts during the Apollo missions, and they share some of their favorite urban legends about themselves. How fun is that? So including the fake moon landing stuff, all of it, they talk about it, and they talk about the science of how we went to space at the same time. So if you want to hear astronauts talking about some of the conspiracy theories about themselves and talk about how we do all the cool stuff that we do, then this is a really good one for you. And I just find the artwork pretty cool too. This next one, this is the newest one that I'm going to share with you today. And even though it's just came out, this is definitely going to win some awards. I'd be very surprised if it didn't. It's definitely been in some talks for winning some awards. And this is Paying the Land by Joe Sacco. This is the story of oil and gas and mining companies going to the Northwest Territories of Canada and being sold Indigenous peoples' land for nickels, basically, and the ramifications of going up to these areas and grabbing all of these resources and what happens to the people that live on the land when they're grabbing and polluting these resources. So what's really unique about the artwork in this is the tone changes. And as you can see, it's absolutely beautiful illustrative work. It shows what it was like before the mining companies came into town, the jobs that were made, and the decline, all that stuff. And I think my favorite thing about this book is see how at first it's very organized, including the type and all of that. By the end, to show how hectic everything is getting. It's even reflected in the font choice and the captions and the word bubbles, which I think is just the coolest thing. I mean, look at that. Look at how chaotic that is. And it does a great job of controlling tone, which isn't always easy to do in graphic novels. But this one does a fantastic job. It's a very emotional read. It's very powerful, but it's also definitely worth your time. So give this one a try for sure. And then my last one, this is a few years old, but it's still very fitting. This is a fire story. So this is the author's story of, he had a house in Paradise, California. The 2017 wildfires hit, and he lost his house, and his entire hometown burnt down to the ground. This is, of course, a sad story where people lose so much. But the main tone of this story is not loss, it's redemption. Because the town works together, and it's everyone working together to rebuild after they've lost everything. So if you want a good redemption story, if you want a story of loss, coming together, just the worst things that could ever happen and somehow making it through, A Fire Story is a really cool one. And also, of course, the art is very pretty. Like here, They drew just what it looked like when the wildfires went through. And then with more choices of color when things are starting to normalize again. All kinds of good stuff. So that is all that I have to share with you today. I will go ahead and leave a nice comment on the bottom of this so you can all get the titles and authors so you can check them out for yourselves. If you enjoyed this, tune in next month on Monday, on October 26th, I think, and I'm going to discuss graphic novels that have monsters or creatures, some type of creature type theme, so we can celebrate the spooky season that is October. So stay safe out there, take care, and I will see you later. Bye.